In the spirit of this course, which I think at its very fundamental level is getting you as a saxophone player more confident speaking directly to the people working on your saxophone, I want to talk about one relatively large misnomer that comes up quite a bit in the industry of saxophone repair. And that is the difference between a couple specific repair jobs, which I want you to have your own working definition of that you can clarify before anything gets done to your saxophone. The first is the difference between an overhaul, a repad, and a mechanical restoration. These are three terms that I think, depending on the shop or the repair technician, really get interchanged quite a bit, but in my opinion, they should be crystal clear. By my definition, a repad involves the disassembly and cleaning of a saxophone, and then basically just the pads being changed. No additional key work, no soldering, no dent work, maybe a cork and filter changed here and there, but it's pretty bare bones, just focusing on the pads. A candidate for a repad should be a horn that has really tight inherent key work. You don't want to do a repad on a vintage saxophone that's got a lot of wear and tear because it's almost like putting a new roof on a house that's falling apart. If you've got a lot of key wear and you just replace the pads, the regulation is always going to be a nightmare trying to chase it down because there's going to be so much flex and movement in the key work. So really be careful when somebody suggests a repad and ask those important questions and assess yourself the key fit on a horn. A good example of a horn that could use a repad would be a modern horn that's maybe 5 or 6 years old that just needs pads changed because the key work is still relatively factory fresh, versus a Mark VI that's been played for 80 years. Now, overhaul versus mechanical restoration, I think it's important to get clear on the differences. An overhaul, in my opinion, is everything that a repad is, but it's going to involve changing all of the additional materials. So all the corks, all the felts, anything that's basically not metal. It should involve, in my opinion, a little bit of key fitting here or there on the most egregiously worn out keys. This is kind of an in-between, a half measure, which is why personally I don't do a lot of overhauls by that definition, because typically if there's any keys that need to be refit, you might as well just do them all. The mechanical rebuild on the other side of that is that the tolerances of literally every single key are going to be made tight again. This is going to involve swedging probably next to every other key. It might even involve something as extreme as adding a bushing to the inside of a post so that you get a tighter tolerance between the rod and the key work. Now obviously the way that I've stacked these three options, they're also going to go up in price. A mechanical rebuild being the most expensive and a repad being the least expensive. But I want you to think about these the next time one of these terms is thrown out at you at a repair shop, and also looking at what needs to happen next to your saxophone, whether it's in the next year or the next 5 years, so that you know what's going to be right for you and your instrument. Another larger job that might be offered to you or suggested for your horn is what's called a COA, or a clean oil and adjust. It's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's like an oil change for your horn. This should involve a complete disassembly and professional cleaning inside and out, all the hinge tubes, posts, everything, not just the body of the saxophone and the neck, and then a full reassembly regulation, maybe a pad or a cork or a felt get changed here or there. Now this is really important that you do this to your horn every couple years, and if you're playing a lot, I'd honestly suggest doing this once a year. Over time, no matter how tightly fit the keys are on your saxophone, the lubrication that is preventing metal on metal contact is going to evaporate. And without changing it on a regular basis, you are shortening the life of your key work by introducing wear that is later going to cost you a lot more money down the road. So considering setting up a schedule for your horn to have COAs done to it periodically, again, every year or every other year, is a great way to increase the longevity of the life of your horn before it needs a full mechanical restoration, and also keep it playing quiet and more efficiently.